Okay, so let's cross to Devon, which is where Leah is at the moment. Leah is one of the people that organises Words by the Water. Leah, we've got the program. Amy's got the program as a PDF, so we can go through that if you want to.
Yeah,
Um,
we're not going to do talk by talk because
no, 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 just the
it
highlights.
might take quite a long time to do that.
I'll give you 10 minutes all up.
I'll go.
Off you go.
Well, this year, and very much thanks to Gwenda and Bookends again for supporting the festival and being partners. We're trying a few different things. So, just as a top line, we have introduced the Cumbrian Young Writers Competition, and it's gone out to schools all over the area. And it's short story, short form writing. I think it's 200 or 300 words, can't remember. And Tom Palmer, the children's writer, is going to be the judge and present the prizes. So we're going to have a winner and a runner-up in each category. So just like you were saying a minute ago, getting younger people involved in culture and the arts is incredibly important. And Tom will also be talking about his creative process and writing. We're keen to promote that one. The deadline for the competition entries is the 14th of February. But the Tom Palmer element of it is worth going to in and of itself. All children go free, and adults we've just pitched at £6 because we just need someone to control the children that they're with because we're not doing it. Um, uh, Also new-ish this year is an interesting piece of theatre, which is a murder mystery that's just going to happen in the main house in Theatre by the Lake with a company called Highly Suspect. And it's a funny show and involves Sherlock Holmes. And beyond that, I'm not going to tell you who done it
I've been
because,
to one of their sessions before. They're great. They're fantastic.
yeah, I actually don't know who done it. That's why I'm not telling you. If I'm being really, really honest. Okay, so can we get off that? Because that is a bad fringe. Come on, scroll up. Lucy's fringe is better. Okay, can everyone see that clearly? Because the writing is quite tiny, but you can go to our website and see it. Yeah, have a bit more of a peruse and uh, at your leisure, really. And the website, Gwenda's going to correct me because I always get this wrong, is wordsbythewaterkeswick.com. Is that right, Gwenda?
Correct.
Yes. Okay, so I do know some things. So on the first day, I'm just going to draw your attention to a couple of events. Natalie Haynes is great, very funny, talking about the classics and why do goddesses matter. Luke Papara, 500,000 years of African culture. Is going to be a really interesting talk as well. His book's called Motherland, and he's a great speaker. Will Hutton, How to Remake Britain. Now, if only we all had the answer to that question. Um, and in the studio that day, the theme, because all the studio days are themed, and the studio is a smaller, more intimate venue, is culture. And we've got a talk by Rebecca Wilson on Georgian feminists. We've got Christopher Harding on the light of Asia. I mean, I have to say, this is the most diverse thing we've put together because we've really been very mindful of the fact that we wanted an equal balance between men and women. And I think for the first time ever, we got there within one person. And also trying to touch as many points of interest as people have in their lives. So we've got Andrew Ziminski talking about a stonemason guide to churches, which is quite niche, but people are interested. I know my brother goes around to churches just to look at, and my son actually, to look at that kind of thing. So we've really done our best to try and make sure the program is interesting for everyone and there's something for everyone. Okay, if we move to the 13th of March in the main house, um, we've got art with Mike Thornton, Mr. Cornish, and Mr. Lowry. The one I wanted to pull your attention to is Julian Bagini and Pen Vogler. So Julian Bagini is a philosopher, mathematician, polymath, if you will, and Pen Vogler is works in the publishing industry. She's quite high up, and I don't know what her exact title is, so I wouldn't want to give her one. and they're talking about food and food sources, and the consequences of ultra processing. So we thought that was quite a pertinent thing in today's with the climate crisis and so forth. And moving on from that, George Monbiot follows up, though he's a rewilding fan. He's actually talking about neoliberalism, so he's talking about something slightly different from that which he normally talks about. And then, of course, you can get involved with, or anyone can get involved with, the murder mystery. In the studio, that's the doorstep day. So this is called On Our Doorstep. So these are celebrating either local writers or locally themed books. So it's very focused on Cumbria. The lovely Kathleen Jones is talking about her book about her mother. So we've called the talk "Reading My Mother," and that's going to be an in conversation with the lovely Kelly Davis. We have I'm literally jumping in and out of things. We've got a Jovan Nicholson talking about Cumbrian rag rugs, and in the evening, or not the evening, it's 6:30. It feels like evening during the festival, I've got to say. Tim Barker about Shakespeare in the Cumbrian dialect, which I think would be really interesting to engage with. Whizzing to the main house. I'm going as fast as I can. The ones that I'd want to pull attention to are Sarah Perry, who's in conversation with Sarah Hall. I think that whole event's going to be terribly interesting. And they're talking about the Essex. Well, Sarah Perry wrote the Essex Serpent, but they're talking about her latest novel, which is Enlightenment, and talking to a local Cumbrian novelist. We've got the ever brilliant Anne Cleves, Polly Toynbee and David Walker doing some politics. Where do we go from here? They'll probably have dinner with Will Hutton and decide we're all going down the drain. I don't know, particularly the arts. Studio and the environment. One I really want to go to, and full disclosure, because I'm celiac and have Crohn's, is Elsa Richardson Rumble's A Curious History of the Gut. So I am definitely going to that talk. But it's a really interesting thing about calling it a rowdy organ. And it can be, can't it? But she tracks it from ancient Greece all the way through Victorian England, the 18th century and so forth. So that's a really interesting, well, for me personally, that's called the Leah Varnell event. We've got Chloe Dalton raising hair about the pandemic when she met a leveret and raised it. Helen Mort about Ethel Haythornthwaite. Sorry to the Cumbrians if I've mispronounced that. Philip Marsden's looking at rocks and what's beneath our feet in geology, and from Cornwall all the way up to the Gold Mountains in Georgia, just squizzing through. We've got the Young Writers Prize, which I've already flagged up. L.J. Ross, brilliant young writer. Simon Armitage, obviously poet laureate, so I don't need to say much about him. Alan Johnson, retired Labour MP, brilliant speaker. And dear old James Rebanks, who's got a new book out called The Place of Tides. So whizzing on to Saturday. I'm doing this quite well, actually, aren't I? How am I doing for time, Tom?
Another 3 minutes, Leah.
I'm going for it. Okay, so we've got another talk, Stuart Gillespie, about food, and is our food system broken, which has got a lot of cultural currency at the moment. A young man called Andrew Seaton about the survival of the NHS and the history of the NHS. And it's won prizes. So that one's one to book up for. Jack Ashby, behind the scenes at the museum, that less than 1% of collections are on display at any given time. So he's talking about that. On Sunday, final day, we've got Mike Berners-Lee, brother of internet creator, obviously, but he's an environmentalist. So we've labelled his talk The Climate of Truth, which is the title of his book. And his other book that I'd also recommend picking up from Bookends, is There Is No Planet B, which was also a really good read. We've got Anne Seba, who has written about a group of women in Auschwitz who came together, who were musicians and things, to create an orchestra. And obviously, it was National Holocaust Remembrance Day yesterday, I think it was. Dermot McCulloch, Christianity and Sex, which is going to be slightly rejigged and possibly involve Mary Elsa Bragg and Richard Coles. We're working on shaping that one up, especially in light of the resignation of the Archbishop of Canterbury, same-sex marriages, all that kind of stuff. So we hope to make that quite a dynamic and challenging talk about the relationship between Christianity and Christian teachings and sex. And dear old Richard Coles, festival finale, fresh out the jungle, but I hope he's had a shower. And on the final day of the festival in the studio, the smaller, more intimate space, we've got the bookcase choice, which is the sister shop to Bookends. I'm sure you all know that. We've got somebody called Stephen Matthews, who knows who that is, Gwenda, who
He's been very good just lately.
He's well worth a visit, yeah. And his book is about the golden. Well, he's talking about one of the greatest characters of the Golden Dutch Age, Vermeer. So I recommend going to that. So it's an art-based, sonnet-based, so two forms really reflecting on each other. David Felton, Cumbria, 1,000 Years of Maps, which will be interesting because I can't read a map and I get lost all the time. So I think I might have to go to that one as well as the gut one. The lovely Chris Wadsworth doing a talk on Percy Kelly again. Really fascinating backstory to that, where some works were discovered in an attic and some film, and Chris was brought in as was one of the experts from the family that found the works, or the films rather. And then I'm going to sleep for a week.
Okay.
We've also got lots of workshops, more workshops than last year, because we wanted to put an educational focus on the whole festival. We've got children's events with Becky Cole, who used to work at Theatre by the Lake, and does story time. There's free events, there's costed events. And then in June, we've got Joanne Harris of Chocolat fame and David Nichols of One Day fame coming up in July. So the festival's kind of bursting at the seams and bursting into the summer.
Excellent. And a nice Cumbrian flavour to it as well, I noticed. Really nice Cumbrian flavour
Very
to
much
it.
thanks to Gwenda and Lucy, because they're the experts, being a softy southerner.
Totally. And there's always a really good bookshop, which is brilliantly up to date in the foyer
Cool.
of the theatre, where you can get all the books. I'm quite looking forward to Robert Farrer, A Lighthouse Keeper's Memoir. I've got a thing about lighthouses. I think I might enjoy that one as well. I'm chairing or interviewing, I can't remember what, Mike Berners-Lee. Probably I shouldn't introduce him by saying, "Oh, you're Tim's brother, aren't you?" Maybe I
Oh,
should think of a better way of
he's
introducing
probably
him.
had enough of that over Sunday
Yeah,
lunch, being
exactly.
eclipsed by his brother. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll think of a better way of doing that. That's great. Thank you so much, Leah, and Gwenda as well. It's an amazing selection of stuff, all in the far-flung corner of Cumbria. I think they come here because they get quite a good time, as well as it's so beautiful in the Lake District. It's so nice to be here. Obviously, a
Yeah.
lot of the authors are Cumbrians as well, but a
It
lot of
does
them
a
come up.
great deal of good for the local trade as well,
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah, yeah,
restaurants and pubs and stuff in
yeah,
the area. And yeah, people do love it. People are very, very loyal to Words
yeah.
by the
And I had
Water.
a quick look at some of the sales for some of the main events, and a lot of them are almost sold out. Some of the big
Yeah,
ones are almost sold
some
out
of the big
already.
ones are, yeah.
So jump on the tickets, folks, if you want to get a ticket for any of those things. Thank
And
you very much,
spread
Leah.
the word.
All right. Yeah. And yeah, keep telling people about it. It's great stuff. Thank you. And thank you. And good luck. And
Thank
no
you.
doubt I'll catch you there at some stage.
Well, I hope so, because a chair in.
All right. I'm moving on from Keswick to a bit further south. We're going to now hear from Nick Hardesty, who runs Lake District Music. Nick, tell us a bit about what is Lake District Music, what's going on this year, and also an opportunity that you have for somebody at the moment.
Yes, morning everybody. I think you either heard from me or from my partner in crime, Steve, probably in the past about some of our programs. But broadly speaking, Lake District Music began back in 1985. So this year will be our 40th anniversary. And unlike so many festivals, we have always had a twin focus. So not only are we trying to bring, the highest caliber artists we possibly can to our Cumbrian audiences, but we've also always wanted to shine the spotlight on emerging young artists. And a lot of those from our legacy are now at the top of the UK scene. So I'm sure a lot of you probably will have heard of Nicola Benedetti, who won Young Musician of the Year about 1 million years ago. Stephen Osborne, pianist, who's just become our president, and many, many more. In fact, it's often surprising to me, actually, how we find even members of our seasonal festival team who said, actually, you know what, I came and took part in a strings course so many years ago, and I remember it very fondly. So we're very proud of that legacy. It was started by Rena Kellaway, who is a South African pianist, and who moved nearby some years ago. She was married to Sir John Mandwell, who started Radio 3, amongst a million other things. So they were sort of a powerhouse team who got this thing started. Sadly, she passed away last year, so didn't make it to our anniversary, which takes place later this summer. I can only tell you a few small things about the festival itself, as that hasn't gone public yet, but we're likely to see one of our local favourites, Jess Gillam, and her band. You've probably seen Jess playing saxophone, also a young musician winner with the BBC, and that will be down at the Coro in Ulverston. We're also likely to see great British pianist Paul Lewis probably doing all 5 of Beethoven's piano concertos. Most of those will be in chamber form, but we'll end Kendall Leisure Centre with the full fifth concerto, and probably Beethoven's 9th symphony with a huge chorus from the community and even more. The festival, as you've seen much from the one we've just seen from Leah, is jam-packed and usually takes some weeks to recover. Izzy down here helped us last summer and can probably vouch for that. And we'll see concerts and walks and family events and masterclasses and probably lots of other things all across the area, from all the way down in Barrow to Grasmere, Ambleside, Windermere, Kendal, Kirkby Lonsdale, and so on. Looking into the future, though, I would say that also from that list of places I've just mentioned, there has been a sort of heavy, more South Lakes focus. And looking into the future, we will want to try and reach a much broader range of people across Cumbria. And that will start probably from next year, visiting the bigger places like Penrith, Carlisle, Keswick, and so on. And we'll probably adopt something like what I call a 3 choirs model, which is where we'll have a few days of rotation each year to the bigger centres while maintaining our core. But we do also want to reach more children in schools as well, and other members of the community. So outside of the festival, we'll have a spring series, which is about to start again next week, and I'll come on to that in a moment. But we also run all kinds of school workshops across the area throughout the spring and early summer, alongside all kinds of soft skills training, much like you were talking about earlier, for a lot of our young artists who, and it's really quite astonishing that they go to music college for 4 years and none of them have any idea about doing a tax return, or how to market their work, or how to fundraise for a project, or even how to even manage a project. So we're trying to help them.
They want to come on some CACN training sessions.
They do, yes. So it's a bit bewildering sometimes. So we're trying to fill in the gaps as best we can, in addition to giving them performances and masterclasses and so on. But with that expansion of activities and impact, of course, we need more people. At the moment, I am the only full-time member of staff, and Steve, the artistic director, is part-time. And we bring in a sort of seasonal freelance team in the summer to help with the delivery. But if we want to reach more schools and communities and put on more events across the area, then we need more help. So there are two roles we're currently recruiting for. One is a full-time marketing and development manager, and the second is a part-time production coordinator. The marketing side is probably more obvious. Well, it's marketing, I suppose. The production coordinator will be a linchpin of all of our education work, liaising between any of our sort of musicians and workshop leaders with schools and building up that network properly. I'm not sure there's really much else to say. I'll put a link in a moment in the chat for the two things.
I think Amy's beat
so
me
that you
to it
can see
already,
that.
actually. She's just put a link into chat for
Oh,
you.
there you go. Even better. That's
Yeah.
great. The deadline for both roles are the 13th of February. And while I mentioned that the production coordinator is part-time at the moment, with the expansion, we kind of see that role growing. And I think it's down to the right person to really sort of grab it by the scruff of the neck and demonstrate, you know, this is what I'm really passionate about, and sort of grow with it. So I would hope in the next couple of years that would be full time as well.
Where'd you
And
get
then
your funding
maybe
from? Where'd you get your funding from, Nick?
for the roles or for everything.
Say again,
For
sorry.
for the new roles or
Just
from
for
everything.
the organisation, how do you keep going? Who pays your salary?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, it's the usual mix. You know, ticket sales only cover 30% of the annual budget.
Yeah.
So the rest is from a mix of individual donations, but a much larger chunk is from grants from trusts and foundations.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time applying and building up relationships. It's often dependent on a pretty sizable Arts Council grant most years, which obviously is a huge piano hanging over our heads if it doesn't come through.
Yeah.
And as everyone knows, you know, you have to sort of commit to doing your project often before you know if you have the money.
Yeah.
And so we're in much the same boat as everyone else. Yeah. And the
Right.
last thing I just mentioned is before the summer happens, as I mentioned, we have a spring series. And this focuses almost entirely on emerging artists. And that starts next week with the Talon String Quartet from Manchester's Royal Northern College of Music. And these concerts all take place on the last Thursday of each month. You can find them all on the, they're good. They can see them all. Ambleside, sort of a spiritual home for us. And we'll be all over the place. Levens Hall. There's also an afternoon tea if you really fancy it. And Victoria Hall down in Grange. And then lastly, as you can see, the last item there, Mozart 40 Orchestra Workshop. Yes, we love to do some community participation events. So this one will be for people that can play instruments, come and take part. We also work with Drum Nation from time to time. We did a gospel singing choral workshop that was free for everyone at the start of the festival last year. And no doubt there'll be something similar coming up this time round.
Great, Nick. Thank you ever so much. What a busy program. And as you said, it's kind of 1.5 FTE that are running it at the moment. And although if you can recruit the right people, that'll bump it up slightly. You know, fantastic range of stuff. And also a bit like the Cumbria Opera Group, great to get around the county as well. I'm sure you know Joe Davis, who runs that. You know, I'm a big fan of what they do, and I love the way they get to all kind of far-flung corners of the county in the work they do, and how they focus on young people, just like it sounds like you will be or are doing already with your program as well. So thanks for coming on and telling us all about that.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Let's move into the final half hour of the call, and we're going to hear from a range of people now to talk about the business skills work that has been going on, and perhaps reflect a little bit on what it's been, how it's benefited those that have been on it, and the people that have been delivering it as well. So I'm just going to hand over the reins of the call, in effect, to Chris Bridgman, who everyone will know helps run CACN, who's been coordinating this and has planned what we're going to hear about. So Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Tom. Yes, so nice segue from the Lake District Music, touching on the business skills that artists need, because every artist or cultural body is a business as well as all the lovely other things they are. And yes, we got some money, UKSPF, UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which is government money, as Tom said at the top of the programme. It's kind of trying to replace some of the European money that we have sadly lost. And that's channeled through local authorities. So the Cumberland Unitary Authority was offering some of this, and it was then kind of administered through the Cumbria Community Foundation. So we secured a bit of money from them specifically to be providing business skills support and development for people living in Cumberland or working in Cumberland in the cultural sector, broadly speaking. So we decided that we'd be offering on the one hand, some actual training sessions, and the other strand is one-to-one kind of brief 1 hour mentoring experiences for people. So people could come forward saying, I'd particularly like some help with the marketing, or I'd really like to sort out my finances. All of those aspects of the kind of business back end of trying to make your way in the cultural sector. I'm really pleased to say we've got some people who've been involved in it. Sita Brand and Kate Brundrett have been providing a lot of the one-to-one experiences. Kate Parry, our great leader, is doing a bit of that as well, but is also going to be doing the final training sessions, which are online next week, and we'll talk about that later. And Kerry Howarth, who has been able to join us, I'm very pleased to say, was one of the beneficiaries of the one-to-one sessions, and so we'll get a little bit of a flavour of what it was like on the receiving end. Yeah, as I say, the aim was to offer people ways to improve their effectiveness and efficiency in all of those kind of slightly boring, if we're really honest about it, aspects, but totally necessary. And to kind of, I hope, sort of get to grips with it in a way that they felt more empowered and even enthusiastic about those sort of things. I think one of the things we've learned is that it's quite difficult for people in those sort of roles, a lot of freelancers, or even if they're working with an organization, small cultural organizations, it's quite difficult for them to get out and go and spend a day somewhere. We were finding that the take-up of the actual in-person training sessions was really quite small. So we've taken some of them online, and we kind of put more of the focus on the one-to-one process. The process for that was that we put a call out saying, do apply, write in, say what sort of thing you would like help with. And then I've tried to match people with experienced people with a lot of knowledge and insight into how to effectively run businesses from the cultural point of view. And Sita and Kate are prime examples of that. And we're really pleased to have them on board. And most of those one-to-one sessions have gone on via Zoom online rather than in person, for reasons of efficiency and distance and everything else like that. So I'm going to pass on now to Sita, who was involved in both training sessions and the one-to-one processes. Sita, just if you'd like to, first of all, talk about the your art is your business session that you ran. So you'd run one of these for us earlier in Kendal some time ago, but we got you over to Keswick to
Yes.
more.
And I did another session there, and this program came out of work I'd done actually with Burnley Words Festival, and I'd been working with a salesperson from the commercial sector, and I found the learning incredibly helpful in thinking about how I apply those skills for myself in running a small arts organisation, and then began to share it, which is where this came from. So the purpose of Your Art is Your Business is to help artists break through overwhelm, gain clarity about their business potential, and develop practical strategies to turn their creative work into a valuable and value-driven livelihood. We had, I think it was only 5 people at the Keswick Day, but I think they all really enjoyed it and got an awful lot out of it, learning to think about what their artistic offer is in terms of how it solves a problem with it solves a problem for potential customers or audiences, and to phrase things in slightly different ways. So that was the main focus around the Your Art is Your Business. And I don't know if we've got time, but I've got a quick exercise that we could do now. Is there time, Chris?
Oh, how quick?
Well, I don't know, 5 minutes, if not.
Probably not, actually.
All right, we'll leave it. We'll leave it.
No.
So just to give you,
people have to book on your next training session.
Yeah, to book on the next training session, and maybe we'll have to look at doing it perhaps on Zoom or on Zoom in 2 or 3 sessions or something, which might make it easier for people.
Yeah.
And the one-to-ones have followed up from that, where people have come with I've got one in fact later today, where people have come with a specific issue that they've been trying to solve, work out, what the structure of their company should be, how, that they're, as so many of us in the arts, we have portfolio careers, don't we? Because, you can't just make a living. Wish we could. We're not all Beyonce or whatever to be able to make a living from the artwork, and so we end up having to do all of these other things to keep things going. So how do we present ourselves? How do we say who we are? So I've been helping them with their thinking about this, and to think about how they can move away from having all of those other tutoring jobs and things like that to make ends meet, to move into creating the artwork that they want to create, and looking at how they present that to potential galleries, customers, audiences. And I'll stop there, see if anyone has any questions.
That leads very nicely into the particular case of Kerry, who was one of the people who you've worked with on the one-to-ones, and very much has a mixed work balance. And we weren't sure whether she was going to be able to join us today. Very pleased to see you here. So Kerry, yes, maybe you can just kind of explain your circumstances and what you were looking for from CETA.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Kerry Howarth, and I run a small business called Primary Art Skills. I work across the county, but also the country at times, delivering inset and training for teachers in primary art and design. It's for a lot of reasons, as that it sometimes isn't taught particularly well in primary schools. So my mission was to try and help schools and teachers to feel more confident, have a really good curriculum. So that's kind of what I do. But I also teach as well, 1 day a week, because that brings a bit of income in and also keeps my hand in the education sector. And I'm also a mum and everything, and I'm kind of spinning, as everybody is, 1,000 plates at the same time. So I set my business up in 2019, and like everybody started off with a huge amount of gusto and ambition, and within a couple of years, because you're trying to earn the money, and the water gets very muddy, and I kind of almost felt like I was losing sight of what I was actually doing and what my business was about. And I knew that it was making a huge impact, but I felt like it wasn't. I kind of lost the vision a little bit. So I wanted to, and also, as a freelancer and a solo worker, it's very lonely at times. You often I don't have anyone to speak to about what do you think about this idea, and am I doing this in the right way? And it can get really lonely, and actually really it's at the point, I think, where probably a lot of people just say that's it. I'm going to go back to kind of paid employment somewhere. So, but I've kind of worked really hard on it, and I'm really passionate about it, and I know that it makes an impact. So I kind of needed that support from somebody to just help me reconnect and think, is it the right business structure? So I applied for the funding to be able to work on a one-to-one with Sita, and she just in 1 hour very quickly was able to kind of sift through the mud, really, of me kind of going on about all the difficult things in the business and what am I doing, and she was very quickly be able to sift through that and kind of give me, and actually what I've been thinking about was actually, I'm only one person, so I'm burnt out a lot of the time trying to spin all these different plates and things, and actually was to think about the vision that from the beginning was to sort of try to do some online workshops which would then be able to, you know, to be more universal and more beneficial for people, because they could watch it whenever they wanted, and that was the vision originally, and we kind of came back to that. So that's great. It was really reassuring, actually. So Sita's really helped with that, and actually her business and my work actually have got a lot of synergy, which was really cleverly kind of composed, I think. And actually, so I've learned a lot from her, but actually I'm going to continue to learn from her, because I'm going to actually continue to do a little bit of work, kind of looking into what she does and what I can take from that. So actually it's the start of a journey, which is great. Actually, it's kind of done that. So this is just the start of that, really, which is great. So I'm really grateful, and I think that the online, all of the opportunities that you provide for freelancers and for all of us are great. Actually, I'd love to be able to access more of them, but as we all know, you know, time is of the essence.
It's great to hear that there's a kind of very specific legacy from that relationship you got with Sita now as well. That's is a bonus, but it's the kind of thing that does tend to naturally evolve. Can I bring Kate in? Tell us about your mud sifting.
Mud sifting. Do you know, I think that's a brilliant analogy, isn't it? Kerry, you're absolutely spot on. I think across the board, you know, as a freelancer and a sole trader, or, you know, as an artist, a creative person, you don't get the opportunity, do you, just to sit down for an hour and just go, whoa, what's going on? Let's just take stock of everything. And the muddy waters analogy, I think everyone's going to really resonate with. Definitely comes up in sessions quite a lot in coaching and mentoring, for sure. So yeah, Sita, your workshops sound awesome. They sound really, really good. I think I might have to come and join some myself. So it's been really brilliant to help and give some people some support on this as well. And I've been working one-to-one, just on an hour, just giving people an hour to take stock of what's going on. They might come with a particular issue, just to get clarity on that. And they've been really effective. They've been fantastic. And it's really nice working with creative people, because in my day-to-day coaching, I don't get to. And actually, it's just a special area, isn't it? You know, there's just something that creative people have that other people don't. Anyway, so that aside, I worked with 4 different people. Person one, I'm not going to name names, obviously, but I've got a printmaker, a painter, a writer, and a movement practitioner. So person one, we looked at time capacity. We looked at what she actually wanted to be doing in her artwork and goals. And we looked at how to balance a part-time job and income and what that might look like really clearly, because that is something that comes up again and again, isn't it? How am I actually going to make some proper money out of this? So she left with clarity on her goals and her vision. She said she felt a real shift, and she prioritized herself, and she got motivated with her artwork, and her ideas were flowing. So that was really nice. Next person, we looked at the changing work environment, and we looked at particularly the lack of funding, the really difficult political environment, the stuff that's going on in the wider world, and how that impacts us in our creative practice. You know, how do we actually, if it's funding led, how do we make that really sustainable? Muddy waters comes to mind here. So she got loads of clarity, and we've established a really better vision of what her future looks like in terms of how it's going to work in a business sense and how she can actually be a creative practitioner within that, and the different roles. So that's brilliant. I'm going to work with her some more. The next person, we looked on burnout and being exploited and what success actually means for her. In a previous role, the terminology work meant giving everything and at the cost of her health and well-being. So the whole idea of what success means, we reframed and we completely took it apart. She's got loads of clarity and she's got more control over what she's doing. She's creating her own path. And finally, the fourth one, we looked at, there's a group of artists setting up a limited company. We looked at the different personalities involved in that. We looked at managing expectations. We looked at people's strengths. We identified roles and a few sort of hesitations about how it might work, because the different personalities in that group actually brought to the surface, which these conversations do so well, a whole lot of unconscious beliefs and presumptions and assumptions about the situation, which we could then take apart, which meant that she wasn't coming from a place of fear. She was then had everything on the table and could say, okay, well, I know that now. I know that I believe this. I know where it's come from. And I know how to approach the whole relationship with the group dynamics and how we can work forward really well. And she had some frameworks to use as well. So there you go, a whole range of different things. It's been really nice.
That's fabulous, and really nice to hear that the diversity of approaches that you've brought to that and the experiences people have had. We haven't quite finished on this project yet. It runs to the end of the month, and there are some more one-to-ones happening over the coming week. But as I mentioned, we've got the last training sessions, and Kate Parry is going to tell us a bit about those now.
Okay, so one of the things that we're often asked for is training in fundraising and bid writing, because obviously it's a challenge for most of us, Cumbria Arts and Culture Network included. But this is something that I've been doing for 25 years and more. And one of the sessions that we ran with the UKSPF money was about, we called it, It's All About the Money or something like that. And it was a really, really good session, but we got to the end of it and I thought, wait a minute, I could do something about fundraising. I could just harness what I've learned and run a little session. So I went on a long walk and I planned this session in my head. I stomped round a walk and came up with this 12-step process, which is not a magic wand or a panacea. It's just my little way of putting down a really good fundraising bid. And so I've kind of packaged that. And that's what we're going to run through on the 28th and 30th of January. We've got one in the morning and one in the evening. They're online. And we are going to skip through that 12-step process. We're going to focus on some of the really knotty bits, like how to use data and how to say whether your work fits in with a strategy and all of that. But we're also going to hear from some of my friends who I phoned across the sector in Cumbria who do really good fundraising work in the culture sector, and they've given me their top tips, which are brilliant, and it's been an absolute revelation. Some of it has backed up what I think, but they've also given me all kinds of nuggets that we're going to drop in across the course of these sessions. So it's not a formula for guaranteed success. Of course it can't be, and we have to be realistic, but I'm just going to tell you how I do it, often with Chris Bridgman here, and he will be talking about budgeting in particular, so that we can talk about it together and answer questions and hopefully enable people to go away with a sense of, okay, this is difficult, but I have a structure and I am just going to crack on. That's what we're trying to do. So I know the numbers are holding up very well and we've got lots of people booked on, but there are a few more places available if you'd like to join us.
Yes, but getting close to getting sold out. So if you are interested, I'd get onto the website.
Okay,
and
so it's the 28th, which is Tuesday. At 6:30, and then no, I'll start that again.
The links are in chat.
It's in the morning on the Tuesday and the evening on the Thursday next week. I'll shut up now. Thank you.
Right, and great to see some connections going on in the chat between people. And yes, Kate knows about some other stuff that's available. Don't think we've got time to touch on that just now, but do get in touch with her. Kate, in 10 seconds, just say what that strand is.
There are more one-to-ones available. It's also UK SPF funding. I'm afraid they're for women in business, so sorry guys. In Cumbria. So just get in touch if you'd like a 1 hour free one-to-one.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody who's been involved with that. I'll hand off to Tom to round off the call.
On behalf of the non-women on the call, apology accepted, Kate. Thank you. Any questions for Chris or Kate or Sita or Kerry or Kate about any of that? I love the thoughtfulness that goes into this stuff. It isn't just chucked together in a sort of generic session. It's just listening to Kate Brundle in particular, talking about the one-to-one and the coaching sessions and mentoring. It's really thoughtful stuff that's focused on the individual and on the subject matter in hand as well. So thank you for everything that you've put into these. And if we get funding through going forwards, there'll be other stuff not dissimilar to this, perhaps focused a bit more on young people to some extent, which again is really essential too. But thank you very much for all that you put into it. Well, thanks very much to Leah, to Nick, to Chris, to Sita, to Kate, and I hope I haven't missed anybody else out there. Lovely to see you. Neil, lovely to have you on the call this morning, and I look forward to that coffee in Cockermouth at some stage soon. Just hunker down today, everybody. Don't go anywhere. Just stay where you are. Put the fire on, or hug the radiator, or hug a cat, or something like that. Stay warm. But don't go out because it's too windy, okay? Just take care wherever you are, be it Greenwich or Settle or Devon or London or Cumbria. I just want to see you again sometime soon. So take care, take it easy. And unless you're a kite flyer, of course, in which case it's probably perfect weather for you. And hopefully see you again. Thanks for everyone for putting stuff in the chat. Hopefully see you again sometime soon, maybe next week. All right, cheerio, everybody.